What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, and one that we've been anticipating because we've been longtime fans of this band. We've seen them live multiple times. So we are going to go over the latest offering from Cataclysm, Goliath. This comes out on the 11th of August on Nuclear Blast Records. This band formed in 1991 in Quebec. This is their 15th studio album overall. I know, it's fucking crazy. These dudes have been around forever. I became a fan of them around In the Arms of Devastation. I heard the riff to Crippled and Broken. It was like that all fucking day.
Yep, I came into these guys with Shadows and Dust, and that record still is one of my favorites by far.
Serenity and Fire. I mean, these guys have some bangers, and admittedly, I have not listened to any of their earlier stuff, which doesn't seem like they're like, in a hurry to reissue any of those really early albums of theirs, but pretty much from Shadows and Dust on, I've been listening to this band. Now, for those that don't know, this band has kind of walked a line between straight up old school death metal, melodic death metal, and even like bits of groove metal, and some, arguably kind of core-ish influences as well. Generally, it's always heavy, always fast. These guys are the masters of the hyper blast. That's probably the first time I ever heard that term was with this band, and then when I heard that blast beat, I was like, yeah, no, that's kind of what that is.
Yep, that's fast.
Now, this is their first album with new drummer James Payne, formerly of Our Penance, which, that band requires a lot of fast drumming, and so does Cataclysm. Their last drummer left in 2020, Olivier Boudouin. I'm sorry if I butchered that.
Boudouin.
Yeah, I don't know. French is hard, but then again, so are every other language other than English for me. Now, we went over their last album, Unconquered, and it was okay. It was pretty much what I expected, and immediately with this album, I had echoes of that because Unconquered opens up with easily the most savage track on the album, which was Kill Shot. This album opens up with easily the most savage track on the album, Dark Wings of Deception. It is, without a doubt, the heaviest song on the album. It is fucking merciless.
Yeah, the spoken word followed by just this nasty fucking riff, dude. Just nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, what great use of a 7-string guitar to just make a nasty, down-tuned, chugified, fucking sinister-sounding riff. And that's how they open the record.
Yeah, actually, that wasn't in spoken word. They always open up their albums with a movie quote. Quote. Always. But, it's just vicious sounding. There's a legit slam breakdown. There's some really sinister, disgusting melodies on here. And, I mean, overall, Cataclysm is kind of known, again, for walking that line between all the styles. Like, what I would describe them as, at least in this, long-running, sound they had, is melodic death metal played brutally. Like, they like just blast beats, very chuggy riffs, but you still have all the very triumphant, anthemic sort of melodies that are, expected out of, like bands like In Flames and At the Gates, but played at like Mach 10 by like bands like Decapitated or like Dying Fetus.
Yeah.
And also the first 3 tracks in here do a good job of that. I mean, the opening is just flat out brutal as hell. Again, heaviest track in the album once again. But the title track and Die as a King do a really good job of kind of moving around in terms of their sound. The title track has like sort of a mid-tempo, albeit more brutal bolt thrower sort of double time groove to it. And then it kind of pivots into like a stomping, kind of more brutal In Flames sort of melody. And it gives it like an anthemic quality. And believe me, Cataclysm really likes to do that sort of anthemic, very powerful sound, especially when it comes down to the choruses. The choruses are always just fist in the air, just circle pit inspiring, just nastiness, very riff driven. And these first 3 tracks kind of kick this album off, I think, a little bit more powerfully than the last one.
It does seem more energetic, more vibrant per se, and I think a lot of that has to do with James Payne. The stuff that he brings to this album adds, I don't know, like a little bit more dynamic to it. Like he knows when to break up a riff and when to halftime and when to blast beat. Because it's not all blast beats. While these guys are known for fucking hyper blasts and going at the speed of light, like he brings a lot of groove to this to kind of spice it up a little.
Yeah, his breakdowns can vary from like more like hardcore oriented breakdowns to straight up like slam breakdowns. And even with the hyper blast, he has some fun. The song Combustion has a hyper blast in it, which is that wild kind of like rolling snare thing. Like when you hear it, you know it. But he actually breaks it up a little bit and kind of makes it his own for a little bit. And that is sort of a standout moment on that song because that song is like predominantly like a hardcore sort of groove to it. Like it's, I don't know, like more akin to like bands like Gate Creeper. Like it has that sort of like, you know, mid-tempo, you know, headbanging, mosher kind of vibe to it. And that is something that definitely pops up in here a lot. In fact, like I would say a good chunk of the choruses generally have that sort of vibe in it. And sometimes the chorus breakdowns are even heavier than, you know, like the breakdowns that happen along the bridge.
I agree. Like in the song The Sacrifice for Truth, the chorus, I think, actually are probably some of the heaviest moments in the song. Like in a spot where you'd think a breakdown should be, they replaced it by using a chorus there.
Yeah, and it's, again, very anthemic, very powerful. Again, lots of, like, fist pumping. Like, that's the sort of thing that I expect from Cataclysm. I mean, years of seeing them live, which is definitely where they fully won me over. Like, that is what they are really good at. And, again, that sort of blend of different styles, albeit played way more aggressively. And this does have like some more melodic flourishes, like the lead harmonies on Die as a King that kind of has some echoes of Carcass circa Heartwork.
Bring her vengeance from the land of the living to the land of the dead.
That is an unnecessarily long title.
Yep, a very winded song title, but yeah. Lots of melody, and even in The Sacrifice of Truth, how they have a tremolo melody over this chug.
And when it comes down to the guitars on here, like it's, you know, one guitarist, and a lot of this is just brooding, nasty chugging, and then kind of switching off to like more, again, anthemic sort of melodic death metal riffs. That is all over here, and well, it's something that I definitely expect from this band, and well, they delivered on that. I think they kind of go to the well a bit much once again. Cataclysm has a sound, and they have a sound that they have definitely milked for years, and while I don't necessarily dislike it at all, in fact, I do like this band a lot, some moments on here get a little stale. Like this album, kind of like the last one, kind of ran out of steam at certain points.
Yeah, like after the first 3 songs, the next couple until you get from the land of the living to the land of the dead are just kind of there. Like I'm not saying that there's not good parts in them, but it's definitely not as much of a punch to the face as the first 3 songs were.
Yeah, Bringer of Vengeance and Combustion almost kind of feel like hardcore songs. They're a little bit more groovy. Again, you have like some like pockets of blast beats, but most of the songs are very groovy, very riff driven.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, kind of what I expected. When you get down to like songs like The Redeemer and Heroes and Villains, the Redeemer kind of changes the mood a little bit. It's a little bit more sullen and dark. Like I like how it fades in rather than exploding like all these songs do. Like generally they explode into blast beats, or you have like an isolated drum beat or riff to just get you ready, and then you're going. But the Redeemer has a little bit more moodiness to it. Like there's some like more sullen sort of doomy vibes, albeit played like with maximum brutality because that's how Cataclysm rolls.
Kind of like Ne Obliviscaris, actually. That's how it opens. It's got this cool, like, isolated melody, and then these tribal drums come in. Sounds a lot like Dan Presslin used to play.
Yeah, I mean, the drum work in here is fantastic.
James Payne is a fucking beast anyway.
Yeah, and as much as the drum work definitely propels this, I do feel like there's a lot of familiar territory in here, and I was looking for moments that really kind of stood out, and an issue that I kept running into on here were the bridges. Well, I think the bridges generally greeted you with a ton of riffs, just like, well, every song and every moment on here. The lack of lead melodies or solos on here, it kind of leaves the bridges feeling very empty, especially on the Redeemer. The Redeemer was the one that, I don't know, it just stood out to me. Like there's a cool, like kind of like melodic breakdown on there, and the riff sounds good, but it sounds like the kind of riff that would play behind a really good soaring lead.
Yeah, actually a lot of the riffing in here is very melodic, and it is mostly in the bridges. Like, and you just think like, okay, there's a decent amount of melody, even some harmony thrown in, maybe there should be a lead just to give it a little more flavor. Like, because it's there, the setup is there, but they didn't take the payoff.
Yeah, and you know, if you're not going to do lead melodies, like there are some sections where they do layer the guitars a little bit more, like namely The Sacrifice for Truth.
I like that song.
There's some really cool stuff they do after the first chorus. Like they kind of get in these droning riffs, and you actually have like a bass lead underneath it, and some more atmospheric guitars. And that doesn't happen necessarily enough in here because a lot of these bridges on here are just generally let's write out a bridge riff into a breakdown and then kind of get back to that chorus or verse. And the formula kind of wears thin without that sort of like extra dynamic of like a lead melody on here. So like one of the main issues is I think the riffs need to be a little bit more creative, and they do get creative on here. In fact, Gravestones and Coffins, that song has the most different riff out of any riff on here.
Yeah, sinister, down-tuned, off-time. It goes with that off-time drum beat, but like it's disgustingly catchy. It's probably actually the biggest hook melody as far as a riff is concerned that I would say in the whole album.
Yeah, it's a more mid-tempo song, but how it opens, again, it's like more like single notes too, and they're just like bottom heavy, but there's a distinct melody that isn't kind of what you expect from them. Like it doesn't scream like, you know, like straight up like mid 2000s mellow death or like brutal death. It is a very distinct standout track on here, and it actually does go into what they do later, but the fact that there is this repeated hook that is vastly different from anything else in the album really makes that song stand out. And in terms of songs standing out, like there's definitely some standouts on here, but not enough of them stood out to me. Like the opening track is absolutely disgusting, and the fact that it has more brutal death elements on it really makes it stand out. And the Redeemer being a little bit more melancholy and dark, and you know, that kind of makes it stand out too. But a lot of these songs, I mean, they kind of fall in line with what you expect from Cataclysm. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That kind of depends on if you like Cataclysm or not.
And I do like Cataclysm. As far as this record is concerned, I'm going to give it a solid 3. It was a good jam. It is definitely riffy as all get out. The drum work is fucking spot on. As far as having a drummer that could dissect these songs in a way that kept them groovy and interesting. Not, again, the Cataclysm isn't interesting, but it just adds a different groove dynamic that I think they might have been missing, at least in the recent years. The production is clear, the guitars are crunchy and chuggy. I mean, it's definitely a good sound. The first song and the last 2 songs really stood out to me as excellent tracks that sound very different from the rest of what's on this record. Well, I do like the melody in most of these songs and the way that they flow. I mean, they transition nicely. While I like that kind of stuff, I just thought like it was missing some sort of additional flavor. Maybe not necessarily leads, because Cataclysm hasn't necessarily been about leads over the years, but like you can tell that they're starting to go in the direction where they could incorporate something like that, because the setup is there. Yeah. When you listen to this record, you're going to hear it. The setup is there to add a little bit more, and I just think that they could have done a little bit more to make all these songs stand out versus just a few of them. Nonetheless, check this out for yourself. If you've been a fan of Cataclysm for all the years, you're still going to really like this record. Definitely go out and buy it, see what you think. As for me, it's a solid 3.
I'm going to go with a 3 as well. This is Cataclysm. Kind of echoes of the last one, but I think this one's better. Like it's just a little bit more fine-tuned. I think the urgency of the pace is definitely there too, and I think that is large in part to James Payne's just absolutely fucking savage drumming on here. They have their anthemic songs, they have their more brutal songs. I just wish that around the middle of the album, like they would spice it up a little bit more, because this opens up in absolutely sick fashion and closes really well too, and showcases like there's a little bit more to them than what we're used to. I think this band just has a comfort zone, and it's been a comfort zone that's worked for them for so long, and they execute it well. It's just when they tease stuff that is a little bit more dynamic in terms of like, you know, bringing up their sound, there is like kind of like untapped potential that, well, we generally only get in like 1 or 2 songs on an album, and then it's kind of right back to what Cataclysm does. Still, what they do, I think, is pretty solid, and I see this as an improvement over the last one. So if you're a fan of Cataclysm and hypocrisy and stuff like that, like if you like absolute brutality, but you also like melodies peppered in there, this is kind of the perfect band for that, because they really work that balance well. And honestly, go see these guys live. Live sold me completely on these guys, because they bring it every fucking time. I've seen them like 4 times. And yeah, they are absolutely insane live and just great at getting the crowd going.
Oh yeah, they have real great crowd control.
Oh, fantastic. But yeah, definitely check this one out. Solid listen. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com, which is still currently under construction, but our Patreon link is on our channel anyway. But when that site comes back online, we will have some shirts to sell you, and believe me, we're going to show you anyway. Because we got to do a goofy video showing off the designs because it's us, and we're really proud of these just because they're in color, and a really cool fan made them for us, and we are super appreciative.
Yep, 100%. They are really awesome. Thank you, Dylan. Yeah, we ran into Dylan at Denver Death Fest, and he gave us this really awesome design and said, here you go, use it for whatever. And we made it into a really fucking kick-ass shirt. They've been ordered. We're just simply waiting for them to come in. So when they do get here, you will definitely see them. They will definitely be available in our web store and all that shit. Yeah. T-shirts. Yeah.
And we are blasting through reviews this weekend because Saturday we are going to be at Heavy Hell in Indianapolis for the little fest there, and that'll be an absolute blast. And then early September we are going down to like the middle of fucking nowhere, Illinois. That's not the name of the town.
Cave Rock, Illinois.
Cave Rock. Yeah, there's a cave, and then there's a rock, and like a town hall and a liquor store, I think.
And we're going there.
We're going there.
Full terror assault, which should be a really, really, really good time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that lineup is absolutely stacked, and we are looking forward to just hanging out and watching a bunch of bands with a bunch of cool metalheads.
Yep.
So, yeah, tons of stuff on the docket for us, but, of course, ton of reviews too. So once again, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It means the world to us.
It does.
And we got tons of stuff planned for you, albeit kind of like slow going in some facets, but we'll get to it.
We're getting there. Little by little, we're getting there. It's what happens when you have a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So,
life.
Yep.
Yeah. Life gets busy.
Life happens sometimes. Here in the real world, outside of YouTube land, life gets pretty fucking busy, but we stay on it.
Yeah.
So
because we don't have lives.
Because
giant losers.
Well.
Yeah.
What?
You're not going to argue this one, are you? No, I didn't think so. Anyway, thank you all once again, and we will catch you later.